Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Valeria and this is the Off-Road Ranch. Some of our subscribers have asked me to show more of the work I do. And I also would like to show you in more detail what my day at the Off-Road Ranch is like. Every day around 5 a.m. I watch the sunrise. This is real nature beauty. I make a fire using dry hay. Even if it rains at night, then as usual there is still dry hay under layers of wet hay. Or I can use gas to help start the fire. As soon as the sun rises, I install a solar panel that charges the battery. I have a battery with a capacity of 1328 watts and a weight of 14 kilograms. I can connect devices with a power of 1500 watts with a peak power of 3000 watts to this battery. The battery can be charged from solar panels with a power of 100 watts, with a weight of 5.2 kilograms and efficiency of 22.4%. The maximum number of panels that can be connected to the battery for charging is 6 pieces. But unfortunately, I was only able to purchase one panel, and this is really not enough. The panel must be periodically turned toward the sun, like a sunflower, to maintain the required angle for maximum charging of the panel. Now, when the days are hot and sunny, one panel can ideally produce up to 100 watts instantly. But on average, it is from 60 to 80 watts when there is sun and much less when the sun is low. This means that it is less convenient to work early in the morning or in the evening, since both the battery and the laptop might discharge. On the left, the display shows the number of watts the battery receives from the solar panel and the number of hours required to fully charge. On the right, there is the power consumed by the connected device and the time until the battery is discharged. When I set aside time to work, I sit in the shade, constantly charging both the laptop and the battery at the same time. In a sleep state, my laptop consumes around 20 watts, and in a working state, it consumes from 30 to 70 watts and is discharged in an average of 2 hours. My laptop is already more than 2 years old. It performs great all this time, and also I adore its multicolored keyboard light. But it is quite difficult for it to render. It is too weak for this. It has an AMD Ryzen 5 processor, 12 cores, 16 GB of RAM and 512 GB SSD storage. Sometimes the render takes 1.5 hours. That is, I can leave it and go to work physically. In the future, rendering may take 12 hours or more, as I plan to increase the quality of the video, and this means resource intensity. Of course, in addition to working on the laptop, I work physically every day, preparing the site for construction. There are some fragments of rock on the site, or it is something similar to an old foundation that once was here. It is not known yet whether problems will arise with it and how large they may be. Every day and every week, the off-road range changes. The thickets are gradually becoming smaller. There are fewer trees, they gradually dry out, and I gradually move and distribute them into separate piles. I have to mow periodically, especially those places I don't go to, as there are more priority tasks. It happens that I spend a week in a few certain places only. These are the places where I work, cook and sleep. But the rest of the territory, approximately 500–800 square meters of land, is constantly overgrown with grass. In addition, I didn't even have time to mow everywhere, since cutting down trees is more difficult, priority driven and slower. I would like to remind you that I have a lawn mower with a power of 2.2 kilowatts. For mowing, I use manufacturer's oil and 92-octane gasoline as recommended. When I bought the trimmer, it came with a standard cord, and if you come across one, I do not recommend you use it, since it is quite thin, weak and dull. And if you bought a trimmer with such power as mine, then most likely you mow not a flat lawn, and you need thick, high-quality cord. I use hex reinforced cord. It cuts the grass instantly, and it also cuts tall, thick, tough grass. Among the disadvantages of the trimmer, I would like to note that the cord sometimes melts and burns to the plastic head. This especially happened with the standard cord during long-term use. In addition, the auto adjustment of the cord doesn't work, but perhaps it is me who haven't fully understood how it works. Anyway, the trimmer is worth the money spent on it, and I do not recommend taking a less powered trimmer for large and complex area of land. Friends, I ask you to subscribe and turn on notifications about new videos on my channel. I also ask you to tell your friends and ask to subscribe if they're interested. I need it in order to get first 10,000 subscribers to have monetization from YouTube. The small financing will allow me to free a few hours a month to make more interesting content for you. And currently, I am trying to accumulate money for buying a mini house in order to survive on the range in winter and to continue the development of the project generally. So I will be grateful for your financial support. In addition, I have Patreon, and for a long-term subscription, I will plant a tree and name it after you. You can send money for a tree in the Monero cryptocurrency as well. By the way, I have a separate video about it. In previous videos, I talked about the need to clear this area of the territory. But besides this, it is necessary to clear this area in order to understand what kind of land is there and how and where to place the house. And I will start by clearing this piece of land. If after mowing this area looked like this, then after a few weeks of intensive cut-down work, the result is as follows. As before, all types of trees are placed in separate piles by sorts. For now, I do not fully understand what I am going to put where, since the land needs to be cleared for mowing, and in the future I need to clear land for the passage of my future trailer and construction equipment. Basically, now you see a bunch of chopped trees that haven't been put anywhere yet. I also put rotten wood and rotten trunks and branches separately. Often they have to be sorted out by hand, and they fall apart due to moisture and insects. After physical work, my clothes are completely wet with sweat. I cannot work in a t-shirt and shorts for several reasons. Firstly, it is important not to catch a cold, but it is really easy to get sick, because if the skin is constantly wet and the wind blows, then you do not notice it because of the heat. But in fact, there is a constant temperature change, and hypothermia occurs in certain areas of the body, and accordingly, muscle spasms or a cold occurs. Secondly, I completely cover my body because in a damp forest or when mowing, heaps of mosquitoes and waterflies rise, and there are ticks and snakes in the grass. Although the squeaking of insects is annoying at first, over time you stop paying attention to it. And thirdly, I can get sunburnt. In general, I try not to sunbathe, so as not to damage my skin and not to create a risk of cancer. And still, even when I work in a t-shirt a couple of hours using sun protection, I still manage to get sunburned. Therefore, if you see people who constantly work or live in the forest, half-naked, beautiful, neat and clean, and in their hands everything always looks perfect and simple, then my opinion is that most likely they are not really working, but are doing it to attract attention. And most likely they are a paid project where millions of dollars have been invested to create a beautiful picture and simulate an activity. You can watch channels of preppers or those who work on their land. A person who really works will not look beautiful. He will be sweaty, red-faced and tired. This is real life. Of course, in the video the person will try to look good, but most likely you will not see how difficult it is for him. Thanks to the fully body protection and mosquito net, I can work until the evening, especially in summer, when the sun sets late, dew falls late, and fine details are visible until darkness. It will not be possible to work in the dark, since tree trunks, holes, debris and stones that can easily be tripped over are not visible. There are also a lot of tree-like vines that I need to step over and remove from the roads, so as not to break legs. In addition, working in the dark is a violation of safety regulations, since despite all my efforts, I cannot provide good lighting for the entire site for a long period of twilight and darkness. I have a separate video number 8 about labor safety and industrial protection, and there I cover a lot of safety standards in various areas. You may have noticed that I do not always get everything right the first time. I do not always get my trimmer or chainsaw started the first time. My movements are not perfect on it. In addition, food doesn't always turn out tasty if I do not follow the proportions or the order and time of cooking. Also, as you will see later, I'll have to remake the woodshed later, as this task also requires certain skills that I didn't have at the time of folding, and I think it is important to show that. What else would I like to say about my life at the off-road range? It is necessary to calculate the time it takes to cook food, since firstly, the cooking time on the stove differs from the cooking time on the fire, and secondly, it takes time for the fire to become coals. It is necessary to have the fire for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and this can take several hours a day. For me, it is optimal to maintain very minimal smoldering after breakfast during the day, so that in the evening it will be easier to light a fire. But in this case, firstly, the area around the fire pit should be cleared of plants and generously sprinkled with sand. And secondly, in any case, you always need to watch the fire. Before going to bed, you should always thoroughly simmer everything and double check it. I will have a separate video on my channel with the recommendations on nutrition in the wild, and I will also tell you how I eat. It is also necessary to clean the camp every day, to remove clothes and tools to a dry place so that nothing becomes wet, so that there is always order and cleanliness, so that insects do not get into pockets and folds of clothing. If the tent is open with a mesh ventilation, then it must be closed before the dew falls, and opened in the morning only when the dew has gone away, so that moisture doesn't get inside. It is advisable not to open the tent wide open and not allow insects to live there. It must be remembered that snakes, dangerous insects, poisonous spiders and scorpions can spend the night in shoes that stand outside the tent, so you should always carefully shake out your shoes before putting them on. You need to sort the garbage, take it away, put away all food both day and night, so that there are no smells. Do not attract animals, snakes and insects with food odors. For garbage that is not suitable for recycling and disposal in the wild, it is advisable to store it and to take it to garbage dumps. If you want to collect someone else's garbage left by someone in forests, fields, mountains, rivers or reservoirs, you are to do it with gloves so as not to catch an infection. In addition, I will make a separate note regarding feminine hygiene. Animals and reptiles smell blood very easily and at a great distance. Therefore, hygiene and cleanliness are very important. Used pads and tampons must be burned to ashes in a separate metal can or taken far away to a separate trash bin. Moreover, lack of hygiene can lead to diseases that are difficult to detect in the early stages and which are difficult to treat. If you are camping for a few days, this is not a serious rule, but if you live in a permanent camp, then neglecting hygiene can have serious consequences. And here is the reason why I will have to reduce the woodshed. At the end of the video, as often happens, I suggest you to look at the fire. In addition, I performed a kind of a small so-called pyrokinesis, and I do not recommend you to repeat these actions. I wish you to enjoy the views of the night fire. It was Valeria, the off-road range. Wish you all the best and see you soon.